What is good, NIO family? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with NIO, Tesla, SPY, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to break down what's happening with Jerome Powell's speech for tomorrow, what's going on with the overall market moving forward, what you should be watching for as you approach some very, very key events. But before I begin down this information, before I give you guys any price predictions, let me just mention that I am not a financial planner. Make sure you take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Moomoo link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Moon, deposit $100, you're guaranteed 5 free stocks. If you deposit $1,000, you're guaranteed 15 free stocks in total, not to mention free level 2 data with $0 commission trading. Once again, there are only 3 weeks left for the offer. Anyways, now let's talk about the market. Looking at NIO, we had a very, very sideways day. We ended up holding below our 200 EMA, just continuing to shuffle at this 4.5 area. The reason why the market actually shuffled as a whole was because we had Jerome Powell giving a speech, and he refused to say anything too crazy that would cause any like crazy volatility. So he just started to say the same things over and over again about how the Fed has their goals of hitting a 2% target. They don't want to cut prematurely. They also don't want to hold rates for too high for too long. And they have to do a lot of work once again when it comes to just monitoring the situation. And there's not really much more that he could say other than that. He also mentioned I didn't want to comment too much on the future of monetary policy as well. He was just very, very closed. If anything, he really contained himself, and that's why the market just kind of traded sideways. Powell didn't really say anything that was too crazy. So going into tomorrow, okay, we have Jerome Powell speaking again at 10 o'clock a.m. But like I said before, because he might not say much, the market's going to most likely chop. So expect some high amounts of chopping for the first couple of hours of the trading day because of Jerome Powell giving a speech again. The market's going to go up and down and up and down. Usually the second day when he speaks shouldn't be as crazy, and it's most likely just going to be a repeat of what we saw today. And besides that, we just have a couple more Fed speakers as the day goes on, from Bowman to Cook, not to mention a few bill auctions at 11:30. So that's all that's really happening. Nothing too crazy. It's going to likely be a quiet day. But then Thursday and Friday is when we have CPI and PPI data coming out. So expect some high volatility towards the end of the week. But I think that tomorrow is going to be a more quiet day before anything else. Once again, guys, Jerome Powell just kept saying the same things today. He's been saying that holding rates high for too long could jeopardize economic growth. He didn't really say anything else since then. On top of all this, I just want to say that when it comes to earnings, okay, earnings right over here are still looking the same. Nothing has been changing. Things become more serious towards the end of the week. So for Friday, we have JP Morgan Chase, Wells Fargo, and Citigroup, and that's pretty much it. Nothing else that's too crazy. On top of this, we also have the Fear and Greed Index currently at neutral, just in the middle, not too greedy, not too fearful. Extreme greed is making up momentum. We're also seeing the puts and call option position continuing to fall because we're continuing to see more and more buyers stepping in. That's the overall ratio, guys. This is the options, at least for the market, not just for SPY specifically. And then for volatility, we're still neutral. VIX is not really getting much of a breakout quite yet. So we're just going to have to wait and see. As far as NIO goes, I didn't see too much news come out. There has been some talk about how they opened their 11th power swap station in Norway, offering users seamless and efficient charging experiences, which is great for NIO and its customers. Also, we have about 26.7 million in volume, so very, very flat volume. Short volume is still kind of flat. And simultaneously, there's nothing changing here. Bank of America still has a neutral rating for the company. Look for volatility around 1 p.m. and also during the final hour of the day. And ones are historically green about 56% of the time, so we'll hope for something decent. But that's pretty much it. There's nothing else too crazy going on. So what is my prediction for the markets? What's my prediction for NIO, at least moving forward? As of right now, the market's continuing to just chop around, going back and forth at the 4.5 area. If we break through 4.53, we'll be looking for a bigger push for about 4.6. If you reject, if you reject right here, we'll be dipping back down towards 4.4. With this choppy price action, NIO kind of trading sideways, there's not really a whole lot else that's going on as we're just continuing to go back and forth and back and forth. But if NIO ends up losing 4.4, we'll be looking for a bigger dip all the way down towards 4.25. I'll be watching to see if that ends up being the case. So just be very, very careful. There's kind of like a head and shoulders like structure here. So NIO does have weakness, at least in terms of its pattern. But for now, we're just kind of choppy. So I think that there's going to be a lot of chopping when Jerome Powell gives his speech. And then what happened today was the market kind of chopped around and started dipping just a little bit. Didn't really do much. So there's a risk of the same thing potentially happening where the market might chop around again. And we might see NIO trade sideways and then possibly dip a little bit later. For SPY, we're kind of looking a little bit more bearish on the 1 hour time frame, but like I said before, I think we're just going to chop around a lot around this 155 area. So might retrace a bit, then just continue to chop around, chop, and then we may dip a little bit more towards 554 as we approach Jerome Powell's big testimony, his speech again. So I think what's going to likely happen is the market's going to kind of trades sideways between in the 555 and 556 area, continue to chop around, and then maybe dip just a little bit. But then everything could change depending on CPI, so I wouldn't be too worried about tomorrow. But I see a lot of choppy sideways price action. For Nvidia, we're trying to rebound. Now, in order for Nvidia to turn back to bullish, let me show you a big test that's coming. On the daily time frame, Nvidia is basically approaching this high. We need to try to break above 135 and start pushing higher. That's going to favor bulls. If we hit 135 and then get a big rejection and we establish a lower high right here relative to the 140 area, then look for a big rejection and move back down. I think Nvidia is going to push a little bit higher tomorrow and consolidate around 133 to 135, but then we will see if we get a rejection or not, but watch for that very carefully as we approach tomorrow. For Bitcoin, we're trying to rebound a bit. I'm going to be looking for a big test around this 58,000 area, because when you look at the 4-hour time frame, we still have kind of like a double bottom. We will see if we break through this to push to 60,000, or if we get a rejection. I'll be giving this a little bit more time. For ES, I want to show you guys ES real quick. We're kind of looking bearish on the 4-hour. I do see a risk of this kind of dipping a little bit lower. If we end up losing 56.25, I'll be looking for a push back down towards 56 flat, 56.10 before we try to rebound a bit. So there might be a little bit of a dip coming. The 4-hour does show that, but then we could try to bounce afterwards. So maybe we see some chop tomorrow, maybe a little bit of a dip before the market tries to bounce again. We could still push a lot higher later on, so don't be too fixated on just a dip. Tesla pushed very, very nicely. We're going to be retesting 265 tomorrow. If we break that, I'll be looking for 270 and then 275 essentially. We're still looking very bullish on Tesla. If we fail to break 265, we're going to be retracing back down towards 260. That's going to be a very, very key support, because that's where we ended up bouncing from for today. But as of right now, the trend is still bullish on Tesla. We're continually making higher highs and higher lows. There's no sign of us getting this big rejection. And I think that right now it's doing a great job of just continuing to push it upwards. So great job by Tesla and its investors, just remaining very, very calm, cool, and collected, watching Tesla just continuing to break out right here. I think there's a good chance Tesla will push higher, so I favor upside, and we'll just have to see if we continue from here. But just know that 275 becomes a strong possibility. If we break past 266 and close above that, that's going to be our next target. If we fail to break 265, we'll look for a retracement back down to 260 or lower. I'll be watching that. Tesla still looks bullish nonetheless. The QQQ is kind of dipping a little bit, especially on the 4-hour time frame. I do see a risk of dipping back down towards 496. We could even go a little bit lower to 495 if that fails us, but it's not the end of the world, because we can always rebound. So look for a little retracement as the most likely possibility, a little bit of choppy price action, a bit of a dip before we try to continue to push higher. We reached 500, which is my target. Now we're kind of cooling off a bit. Aapl, on the other hand, is looking more bullish. We could actually slowly try to climb up towards 230, which might help the QQQ chop around. There's going to be some downwards pressure and some upwards pressure for it. So I think the QQQ will chop around, maybe dip a little bit, but excuse me, Aapl may push up for 230. That's still looking very, very probable. Going back to a few more, if you look at AMD, retracing a little bit, might come back down to this imbalance towards 174. Amazon's forming a very, very nice looking bullish wedge, or an ascending wedge. This looks more bullish to me still. This favors upside even more, so we'll have to see if that ends up being the case. We could get a breakout as long as we manage to break past 200, but overall it's looking pretty good in my opinion. So I'll be looking to see this level right here if we continue to break out of this. If we break 200, look for 202. For Meta, we're looking a little bit more bullish as well. It is possible we dip a little bit lower towards 525 and then try to rebound. The trend is still trying to move upwards. I think we might dip for 525 and then try to bounce. I'll be watching for that. Just a few more. Microsoft looking a little bit weaker as it came down to about the 460 area. If we reclaim this, we want to get back above 461.67. If we get back above this imbalance, we'll be pushing back up. So watch and see for a bounce attempt going into tomorrow. Google's also kind of trading flat, very, very choppy. I think we're going to continue to shuffle around 190, not doing much. GameStop is also shuffling. It might try to get a little higher towards 25, but I expect a lot of sideways price action, nothing too crazy. And then AMC is also attempting to push higher, forming a very, very nice looking inverse head and shoulders like structure. So this might actually try to push in the upwards direction. And I think that's looking pretty good in my opinion. So the 4 hours is kind of choppy right now. We'll see if we continue to push. So we'll have to give this some time. If AMC can get back above 5.5, we will remain bullish. So I'll have to give this some time. With that being said, I want to thank you all so much for listening. Please have an absolutely incredible rest of the day. Just know that the market is looking bullish overall. We are favoring upside for the much larger trend. But for the short term, there might be a little bit of a dip tomorrow with Jerome Powell's speech, even lots of like choppy price action. But the trend, the overall picture is still more bullish. Maybe we dip a little bit for the short term, but we could still bounce later on. And we're going to be watching to see how things end up going. NIO, on the other hand, has a more bearish looking pattern. There is a risk of it tipping a little bit lower. I expect a lot of it shop around the 4.4 to 4.5 area, and we could tip lower if we end up seeing something like that. With that being said, I want to thank you for listening. Have a great day, guys, and I'll see you guys very soon on the next one. Thank you and peace out.